Hello and welcome back to Normal Island. I'm, of course, Curtis Daly, your host for tonight. And because it's Friday, I'm joined with the amazing Sarah Delau. Sarah, how are we?
Yes, good, thank you. How are you? It's good to be here. It's Friday, end of the week, which
End of the
means
week. I love it. It's been
it's
great weather. Looking
summer.
forward to the weekend.
Yeah.
And also, I've got my suit jacket on by popular demand, apparently. And I say popular demand, I think it's just one person, but I thought I'd bring it back.
Yeah, true. And my shoulders aren't out, so maybe we're on to bigger and better
Bigger
things.
and better
Bigger.
things. Let's hope so. Now, coming up on tonight's show, we've got a good one. We've got rich people say they are struggling, as the Times writes a pathetic article about struggling rich people. Labour admits UK are training Israeli soldiers, and Israel attacks Iran unprovoked. As always, remember to like the stream, and if you're not a subscriber, of course, hit that button. Again, we'll be getting to your comments at the end, so please make sure you're very, very busy in the chat. But on with the show, and on to our first story. The Times have written a piece about poor old rich people. Apparently, six figures still means you are struggling in what they describe as Henrys, which is high earners, not rich yet. I earn more than £120,000 as an accountant. My husband earns less, £95,000. We're a high-income household, but only on paper. We're basically your typical Henry couple. It stands for high earners, not rich yet, and it's a term now used by financial institutions to describe people with usually six-figure salaries, but crucially, not much accumulated. The banks aren't looking to court us. Our accounts are far from flush. My husband goes into his savings each month to survive. Well, I don't have any money left over in my account at the end of the month. Our take home should be a lot of money, and yet earning 120 grand is one of the worst places to be because you get totally shafted. Now, you lose half of your tax-free allowance for every £2 you earn over 100 grand. You lose £1 of your tax-free personal allowance, and you lose out on free childcare help from the government too. As I've learnt, once your taxable income reaches 100 grand, you don't get your 30 hours of free childcare, but a blanket 15 hours instead. You also lose the ability to claim tax-free childcare up to £2,000 a year. I kid you not, this next bit is real. This is a real paragraph. It isn't fair. That extra money will be a game changer. We get 20% off what we pay our nanny. It would mean that we would have a little bit of money left in the bank at the end of the month. Oh, nanny, you really could not make it up. Now, first of all, £120,000 per year puts you in the top 2%. 95k puts you in the top 5%. And this household, this particular household anyway, gets £215,000 per year. Have they thought about, I don't know, cancelling their Netflix subscription? Sarah, we have food banks, we have people on welfare who are also in work, yet a couple in the top 2, maybe 1%, are struggling to pay their nanny, and they are angry that they don't receive all state benefits. What's your response to this article?
Don't. It's actually laughable. It's laughable. When you sent this to me, I was like, this is actually insane. They can go fuck themselves with all due respect. Like, this is a masterclass in ruling class propaganda. Like, oh my
Hmm.
God, my life is so hard. I'm struggling out here. I want to be able to save enough money so that I can, with the nanny that I do have, because childcare isn't, is accessible, obviously, to like the common public, that I can have a bit of money left over at the end of the month. I think if you're making 120k or more, you're already in the top 1 to 2% of UK earners, and that's not rich yet. That seems so obscenely comfortable compared to the vast majority of us who are probably on that median income. I think the median income in the UK is about 37k, and even that isn't enough for people to live a life that is full of prosperity. You literally have 3 million people waiting for emergency food parcels, or that's the number of food parcels getting handed out, got handed out last year, and people who are struggling as a result of that. That's Britain's real story of economic struggle, not these people who
Hmm.
are earning this amount of money and are like, yeah, well, I'm really, life's really tough. And this is coming from someone who was a nanny in London for incredibly rich families, and I navigated that space, and they were going to art galleries for a day, like, which is great, amazing, like, go spend some time with your hubby, but at the same time you can afford to pay me a large amount of money as well. You're fine. I was a broke student, by the way. I wasn't doing that willingly. I needed money where I could get it. But I think what this article does is that it performs this ideological trick. And it doesn't surprise me that it comes from the Times, to be honest, because it makes affluent professionals seem like the victims of the welfare state instead of seeing themselves as beneficiaries of an economy that's rigged in their favor. And that's what's really pissed me off about this whole story. I think the real injustice isn't that people on six figures lose their tax-free childcare. It's that the very idea of universal childcare isn't even on the table because of neoliberal politicians and their media enablers that have convinced us that public services should only be for the deserving poor.
I want to know about your background as a nanny. I
Oh,
didn't know that. I'm actually really interested. What was it like? I want to know what those that hired you, what they're like. I mean, you have clearly more insight on this than I do.
one of them was a lecturer at my uni,
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
yeah, and she was like, "Hey, I need some assistance," and I said, "Hey, I'm counting my pennies to get Blue Dragon sweet chili for my stir fry that I need to bulk cook." So it looks like we're going to meet in the middle here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a whole other story. But then I ventured into other parts of London where people actually needed childcare, and I those rates were
Mm.
incredibly low, but. I've made amazing connections. Not with the rich. I don't think they liked me too much. I walked into their house. I was like, "Why is there a slide in here?" It makes sense.
Slide. That sounds kind of fun.
It sounds fun.
I mean, to be fair though, like even though I have like the world's smallest violin for these people, I do think there is actually something to this. Not for those who earn that much, by the way, but I'm talking about the bottom 80%. The cost of everything is so expensive, rent, mortgages. So even if you were to think that your wage is decent on paper, I mean, you mentioned that the average wage is 37k. You say that to someone, and people go, That's a pretty good wage." But obviously, the cost of everything wipes that away.
Completely.
I also believe in universalism, so I actually support free childcare regardless of how much you earn. I wouldn't taper it off based on earnings. So obviously, they were saying if you hit 100k, it goes from 30 to 15 hours of free childcare. And I mean, people might disagree with me, but as a socialist, I'm like, I still think these people should get 30 hours. And then you can just tax it back by slightly increasing income taxes on higher earners. So you're kind of paying for it. And also, because it's through general taxation, it will save them money. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree with you. I'm of the same essence because I think there are fundamental human rights that people deserve to access, housing being one of them, childcare being one of them. People are not having children because they cannot afford it, not because they don't want kids, it's because they can't have them. The way that this country's built up means that even though 37k sounds like a lot, maybe a few years ago it probably would get you quite a few things in a shop. But now 37k doesn't last you at all because, like you said, the cost of living is increasing incredibly. So wages have stagnated quite a lot. But I think I would agree with you. But I think what really grinds my gears a little bit is that I'm still seeing this poor rich narrative that comes out all the time because it hides the wealth extraction that's happening at the top. And I think we saw in 2008, we've seen one of the largest upwards transfers of like wealth in modern history after the pandemic profits, corporate price gouging, landlord gouging, sorry, landlords literally rising rents quite significantly, faster than wages itself. But you won't read the Times weeping for the millions trapped in insecure work or facing eviction. But apparently it's the accountant with a nanny that who wants to save a bit more. But I think if we want real fairness, you're absolutely right. We start, and it goes back to what we always say this on here. And when we analyze Gary Stevenson, we said the same thing as well. Start taxing wealth, not the income. Fund universal services from cradle to grave, like childcare, healthcare, housing, all of it, and stop gaslighting working people into believing they're jealous of millionaires scraping by on 10k a month. That they aren't struggling; they're just insulated from the world. And I think working people are the only people that are struggling. They're the ones that this system is abandoning daily.
I mean, if you were to get that £215,000 wage, and this is obviously for the couple, um, even in London, because I hear a lot when people say actually 80, 90, 100 grand isn't a lot of money because if you live in London, it's really expensive. But if you have 200 grand in a household income, that's still a lot in London. You can find, even if you found a place, whether if you don't own a home, you can find somewhere to rent for two people for £2,000. And I'm not saying, oh, it's easy. It's incredibly expensive in London. But if you have that wage, I'm sorry, you're not struggling. But it is a question I want to put to you, actually. Could this potentially be some sort of pathway to the radicalization of the middle class? Because the middle class are weakening, they are disappearing. And I do think with the rising cost of mortgages, I know this article is kind of a more of extreme level, but because people don't have that much money to be part of the middle class. But if they're feeling the pinch, is it possible that they could be sucked into left populism? And we can speak to these people and say, look, you're clearly a lot more wealthy than I am. You probably are, I would say, tend to be more conservative than we are. However, the real problem is the mega rich. So when we talk about taxing the wealthy, we're not talking about you, but it's the mega rich. And actually, you're now struggling because the cost of living is going up. And you're also saying that you would like to have 30 hours of free childcare. Well, guess what? Who's the political faction is more likely to give you more childcare, who wants to spend more money on public services? It's the left. Is there a possible way of bringing in I would say, the top part of the middle class in?
I actually think that's a really great point. Like, there is, you mentioned this thing just before you asked that question about the radicalization of the middle class. And I think that that's absolutely what might happen with the professional middle class. I think the goal is basically with stories like this to kind of turn them away from solidarity with the working class. And instead, they will become a resentful constituency who might oppose universal public goods. And I think that that is a huge risk. If they can convince a 120k household that they're being shafted by the state, they can drive them towards anti-tax politics and toward privatization, towards
True.
austerity.
Good
And
point.
I think in short, toward a Thatcherite worldview where public services are delegitimized entirely. And I think that in and of itself is how the Overton window it shifts. They take a privileged group and they convince them that they are under siege, and that privileged group will then be like, yeah, I am under siege and I need to save myself. I need to save those my family. It will become it's a very, very individualized approach. And then those same people become the social base for the parties on the right, anti-worker policies, like, and it's a class war. This, as funny as it is, we're laughing at people who wanna save as much money by having 20% off and being able to afford a nanny and whatever. It's actually scary because class wars don't end well. Look at what's unfolding at the moment. I think, yeah, I think it's time the foot soldiers are, and I think the foot soldiers who are the accountant couples with the nannies, they need to realize they're being tricked. They're being tricked entirely with these ideological, this ideological like standpoint done by the Times.
Very interesting. We'll see. Of course, obviously, any sort of successful political project has to encapsulate as many people as possible. But you are right. I mean, they could come to the conclusion of the individual self, which is, why is my taxes so high? And this is the thing: like when things get hard, when times get tough, people often don't look at the state and say, can they do more? They usually say, I don't trust the state. I want my taxes to go down. And then this is where reform are very good at sort of picking up these people. But you put some really interesting arguments there, but we will see what comes of it. But I think we're gonna I think we're gonna move on though to our second story. Labour admits that the UK has been training IDF soldiers. The UK being complicit in Israel's genocide is hardly a secret. They have given them cover for far too long. They continue to sell weapons, and when it comes down to it, only offer mealy-mouthed words of condemnation. But the level of complicity keeps going deeper. The news came in response to a written question at Westminster put in by Labour MP for York Central, Rachel Maskell. Maskell asked when the last time a member of the Israel Defence Forces was trained by the UK Armed Forces. In a response published on Wednesday, Armed Forces Minister Luke Pollard admitted that the UK was currently training IDF soldiers in the UK. Pollard said, as part of routine defence engagement with Israel, the UK is currently training a limited number of Israel Defence Forces personnel on UK-based training courses. Maskell also asked Pollard of British spy planes. She asked, when was the last time his department provided A, Israeli government, and B, Israel Defence Forces with surveillance data of Gaza from Royal Air Force planes? Pollard, in his response, referred only to previous answers in which he said the UK controls what information is passed to Israeli authorities. Surveillance information of Gaza is passed to the relevant Israeli authorities only where it relates to hostage rescue and where we are satisfied that it will be used in accordance with international humanitarian law. I am unable to comment further on detailed intelligence matters. Sarah, it was only a couple of days ago when the UK sanctioned Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir in a personal capacity. All that means is nothing, right? We continue to sell arms, but we're also literally helping train their soldiers. What does that say about some of the disgusting practices the IDF gets to? I mean, do our soldiers do the same thing? Are they learning the same thing off them?
Yeah, really great question. I mean, it's frightening because it goes back to the show that you did on Monday, that it's performative. It's all performative, and we could have seen it from a mile away. When they gave these sanctions, we were like, well, why don't you just sanction Netanyahu while you're at it as well? It's not just about these extremists. It's also about the fact that Netanyahu is an extremist himself. And I think what it says is that this government's like moral pasturing is literally just theatre. It's pure theatre. You can slap sanctions on a couple of extremist individuals or extremist ministers, but if at the same time you're training the soldiers who carry out the massacres that are happening at the moment in this genocide, then you're not neutral. You're simply complicit, and that's why I'm feeling frustrated with the fact that all of these performative acts that they do are feeling insulting, and the IDF, they're proving they are not a normal army. This is not a normal military. They exist to enforce a system of apartheid. And that's the word that's literally been used by Amnesty. I'm not making this up. Human Rights Watch, even Israeli groups like Betislim, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Betsalem, yeah.
Betislim. They have literally said this as well. So the IDF has routinely used live fire on unarmed civilians. We don't need to see more videos of it happening. We don't need to see any of it unfolding the way that it is. And there is intelligence sharing. Like, I think since 2014, UK surveillance planes have flown hundreds of missions over the Eastern Mediterranean, and leaked reports show that the RAF aircraft was actually gathering signals intelligence. Like, these things have happened. We've always been complicit. We continue to be complicit. But we've already seen Israel bomb multiple hostage sites. So what exactly is this data being used for? That's what's frustrating me. We are so involved in everything that's happening in Gaza at the moment, everything that's happening with Israel and the things that they do. As to whether if our soldiers will do the same, I think we just have to look at Britain's own colonial record for a thing to use. Northern Ireland, Kenya, Iraq, like, British forces have literally have their own deep history of collective punishment, torture, and extrajudicial killing. So would it surprise me that any of this is unfolding? No, it doesn't. But it breaks my heart because the idea that the UK is teaching Israel how to behave better is laughable.
I mean, the IDF are notorious for their lack of discipline, so they will often ignore orders and start firing on innocent people. Not that the Israeli state cares, by the way, because often they'll sign off on that. But there's that culture, that sick culture within the IDF, where they sort of go even further in their sycophantic behaviour. And I feel like the government really wanted to keep this on the down low, but Rachel Massel clearly had other ideas. Now, in terms of spy planes, right, Pollard said that we only give them intelligence on the whereabouts of the hostages. I mean, do you even buy that? And look, if we were to believe that for just a second, let's just go with it, right? All of the hostages that were killed by Israel's hand, surely that means we are blamed for it as well, because we are to blame for it too, because if we're navigating and helping them where the hostages are, and then they end up bombing buildings and there's hostages in there that kill them, this is on us too.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, I don't buy it for 1 second. I don't think anyone buys it. I don't even think the ministers believe it as well. Like, these only for hostage rescue. Like, those lines, I think, for pure legal cover. I think it's like, listen, let's just cover our backs so that when evidence of UK complicity emerges, they can claim plausible deniability. I think the reality is that Britain is providing Israel with surveillance data gathered by very, very sophisticated aircraft, and strategically, we need to think, why is Britain even involved? Because this isn't about saving lives. It's about cementing Britain's role as some sort of junior partner in US-led imperialism. I always view the the UK as this, this baby of the US. Like, we're basically the US's little bitch. And the same alliance that fuels wars across the Middle East now drags us into Israel's crimes. So this is not in the interest of British people at all, and I don't want anyone to ever think that it is. It serves the arms dealers, the political elite, and the imperial project. It doesn't serve anyone outside of that. And if we actually had a government that had some sort of moral courage, we would cut off all of those arms sales with no questions asked, end military training, and stop sharing intelligence with a genocidal regime that does not favor anyone apart from their own apartheid interests. I think until then, every Palestinian killed and every Israeli hostage bombed by their own state carries our fingerprints too. And history is not going to forget that. And I do wonder how it will be reported on in the future, or whether this will make part of any sort of educational curriculum in the UK. Who knows?
Sarah's cooking. Absolutely cooking that fire.
It's that
Loved
nap
it.
I had. It's that nap. The
It's
nap
that
I had.
nap.
I think it just gave me some insight into how Britain is so fucking
Yeah.
performative. No, we've always known it. We've always known it.
I mean, the thing is, though, when it comes to like arms sales, that's sort of an to use the term arms, like an arms sort of length complicity, right? It's easy to do because you're not looking at it, you're not there. It's signing some sort of paper and signing off on it, right? But when it comes to training or helping train the IDF, that's so visceral. It's right there, and you just think, wow. I mean, clearly, obviously, our government has no moral backbone. We wouldn't be supporting Israel in this, but one could say, when you sort of distinguish two different kinds of violence, right? One is a systemic violence, which if you're a person in power, you don't feel guilty because, again, you're just sort of, you're a pen pusher, and the policy and effects are what's violent. And there's another form of violence where you're literally committing that violence, and clearly it's a lot more real, a lot more visceral to that said person. And I'm just thinking, when it comes to training these IDF soldiers, that is so involved, right? It's not just, we're sending weapons to them and sort of like not thinking about it. We're there, and yet we still do it. And it completely contradicts, I think, the slight shift, and I say ever so slight shift, in the rhetoric from the UK and other Western governments sort of taking Israel to task, or at least individualizing it when we're talking about certain people like Smotrich and Ben Gvir. And then they sort of just admit, oh, by the way, we also train these soldiers too.
It's actually embarrassing. You're so right in saying that it's so explicit. Like, it's such an explicit move to make. It's like, hey, yeah, we're going to train you guys. And you rightly said this as well. Israel has already bombed hostage sites. Like, we've got the evidence. We see it every single day. Their military has admitted this openly as well. I think and just thinking about the UK data, like, if this UK data was used even indirectly, then yes, we're complicit in those deaths. But morally, the idea that we trust the IDF to only use British intelligence lawfully is actually absurd in and of itself. And we know that army operates outside of international law on a daily basis. So if the government gives them tools of war, then they absolutely share the responsibility for those results. And that's what we're doing. I think we've been sharing the responsibility of all the things that have been happening as a result in Gaza and in Palestine the minute we started selling these arms. And now even more so when we're training soldiers. That makes zero sense to me. And I just find so much hypocrisy with it as well, because we did a story months back when Starmer had made this announcement that, yeah, we're willing to put soldiers on the ground in Ukraine. And I'm like, whose side are you on? Like, whose side are you on? You want to back Ukraine, and rightfully so, Ukraine should be backed wholeheartedly. But when it comes to the explicit harm that is the IDF soldiers and Israel doing to innocent civilians in Gaza, it's like, no, let's train you to make you even better. Like, what? It makes no sense.
Well, that's the liberal mindset. It's like, okay, yeah, we should back Ukraine over Russia, and you can say, okay, be consistent with that logic. Do you then also back Palestine over a colonial imperial power? And suddenly go, what? And so where's your consistency? Where is your fucking consistency? But that's fucking liberals for you.
You're absolutely
to borrow your term, facts. You were speaking facts there, and I loved it. We're going to move on. But before we go on to our last story, I just want to say, if you're enjoying this stream, then please give it a like. It helps the algorithm. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscription and also hit the notification bell, because so many people are not realizing that a new video has been uploaded or we're going live. Now, if you want us to grow, then you can head over to turnfmedia.co.uk/support. There is a link to our Patreon where you can support us monthly, or follow the other link to give us a one-time contribution. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube member for just 99p. And as I always like to say, we are facing a global oligarchy, and now more than ever, we need radical independent media. So please help wherever you can. But on to our final story, and of course sticking with Israel. Israel has attacked Iran unprovoked, and Iran has vowed to respond. Of course, updates. We actually do have a response from Iran. Israel has attacked several Iranian nuclear facilities and military sites and carried out assassinations of top military officials and nuclear scientists. An initial wave of strikes was carried out on Friday morning. A second separate attack on the city of Tabriz, northwest Iran, was reported by local media later on Friday. The aggression has led to fears of a wider military conflict in the region, with Tehran promising a harsh response. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in a pre-recorded message that the strikes early on Friday were aimed at hurting Iran's nuclear infrastructure and ballistic missile factories. Now, of course, Netanyahu has said these are targeted strikes aimed at military bases, but what a surprise! He's lying. In fact, Israel bombed a residential area. So as you can see on your screen right now, this is an image of a residential building collapsing in Tehran. And it doesn't look like a military base, does it? Unless, I don't know, Hamas was hiding under there. Now, Donald Trump has intervened, and he warned Iran of even more brutal attacks to come following the Israeli military strikes, as he called on Tehran to make a deal over its nuclear program before there is nothing left. Now, do you want to know what's so stupid about that statement? Barack Obama, when he was president, forged the Iran nuclear deal, a deal in which Iran gave up their nuclear weapons. When Trump became president the first time, he scrapped the deal. Sarah, once again, most of the West stand behind Israel after another unprovoked attack on Iran. Question is, surely Iran has a right to defend themselves.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised people aren't saying that. I'm surprised people aren't jumping on that very statement that they were doing when the hostages were taken on the 7th of October. Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel has a right to defend itself. What about Iran? Surely Iran has every legal and moral right to defend itself under Article 51 of the UN Charter. Israel's attack was an act of naked aggression. When I'd seen it happen, the fear that I felt, even here, I couldn't imagine how Iranians were feeling in that moment. It's a violation of international law, yet most Western governments either backed it or stayed silent. I haven't heard anyone speak up, apart from Trump and his little, on Twitter. I know you hate it when I say X, so I've actually purposefully said
Yeah,
Twitter.
Come on now.
I'm part of a different gen, what can I say? But it tells you everything about whose side they're on.
Yeah.
Trump was literally saying things like, oh, well, I gave them 60 days. It's now 61. And I'm like, shut up, mate. Like, they've actually attacked what I'm going to describe as a rogue state. Iran is pretty rogue. And I think obviously, their retaliation doesn't surprise me. I was expecting it. I was like, I know for a fact that they're going to fire back 100%. I think, let's be clear, this did not start last week. For over a decade, Israel has been waging a covert war against Iran. Their intelligence services, in partnership with the CIA, have assassinated at least 7 Iranian nuclear scientists since 2010. So it's something that has happened. And I think Iran doesn't. You can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I don't believe that Iran has nuclear weapons.
I did want to quickly chime in. So basically, it's most likely they didn't. So the actual deal, I probably misspoke there. The actual deal was that they were not going to pursue it.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't be 100% because states usually are quite guarded with their chest whether they have nuclear weapons. So there's a possibility they have. Maybe most likely they don't have one. But the point was that Barack Obama came in and, you know, the guy is, especially on foreign policy, terrible. But one of the few good things he did was this Iran nuclear deal, because we all want to see less nuclear weapons in the world. They did this deal, and the so-called peaceful President Trump, in his first term, scrapped that deal. So, of course, what do you expect, especially with the threat of Israel? They're going to pursue nuclear weapons. And again, as leftists, we don't want that to happen. But what do you fucking expect?
But is this not a propaganda cover, like a strike on nuclear weapon sites? It just feels like such a propaganda cover. Like Israel's bombed multiple sites in civilian
Well, I mean,
areas.
you saw that image there, didn't you? That was
Yeah,
a residential building.
literally,
So,
where residential buildings were hit, 80 civilians, almost 80 civilians were killed. So imagine the outrage. Just imagine the outrage, hypothetically, if Iran had done that to Tel Aviv, like where lots of people live and reside next to each other. The bigger picture here is that Israel's goal has never been. Let me rephrase. Isn't self-defense. I need to be very careful. I think it's just regional domination. Iran is the last major state in the region that resists US Israeli hegemony. They're very against it and they're very open about that. I think that's why Washington and Tel Aviv want it weakened, isolated, economically strangled. And I think they want a compliant Middle East that's dominated by US allies. That might be Saudi and UAE and Israel, all armed to their teeth and open to Western capital. And that's what scares me. I think Israel's acting as the West's forward base in the region, but you're backed by $3.8 billion a year in US military aid with massive UK arms exports as well. The strategy is pretty clear to me. Keep Iran under siege,
yeah.
crush resistance movements like Hezbollah, and maintain the conditions for endless wars that enrich these arms industries.
I mean,
Yeah,
you're
scary.
absolutely right. This has nothing to do with defense. I mean, Israel are colonizers. They want Gaza. They want Iran. They want the entire Middle East. I'm going to say this plainly. I've said it on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm going to say it on here, and I've said it before. But Israel is a terrorist state.
Yes.
They commit terrorist attacks, and they are using the same tactics of Gaza on Iran just so they can occupy them.
Exactly. And I think, and I'm going to repeat it, Iran has a right to defend itself because who pays the price in all of this?
Yeah.
It is ordinary Iranians, Palestinians,
Absolutely.
ordinary Israelis as well, who don't want anything to do with an apartheid state, don't want anything to do with this genocidal regime, with this apartheid front. They don't want anything to do with it. I think what we have to do is oppose this imperial war drive as well and call it out for what it is. Like, I think we must continue to demand an end to UK complicity with the Israeli aggression, and we have to say it clearly. We have to be super upfront about it. But I will be super upfront about the fact that I think Iran does have a right to defend itself. The irony as well was they had said, yes, be careful, civilians of Israel, because we are going to anticipate that Iran will attack. You know for a fact Iran is going to attack. Why would you willingly put Israeli people in a compromised position after you did a naked aggression on Iran? It makes no sense to me. You don't care about defending the people in Israel. You don't care about defending the state of Israel. Oh, they do care about defending the state of Israel and only that, but they don't care about the people within it. And they also don't care about Iranians, Palestinians, and the people that are suffering as a result of Israeli aggression.
And of course, Iran, I mean, this obviously happened after I wrote the script, but Iran has retaliated. And it's funny because when I've seen conversations online about people saying, look, I mean, Iran, we don't agree with the regime. It's an authoritarian, conservative regime. But like literally under international law, you have a right to defend yourself. And people are saying, oh, what? So you want Iran to have nuclear weapons? And like, that's not the point, right? Of course, I don't want a single state having nuclear weapons. It should never have been invented. But if Israel's going to, I mean, they most likely have nuclear weapons. And by the way, Israel's a proxy for the West, which obviously we have. The US has nuclear weapons, right? Then surely Iran, again, not morally should, but in terms of like evening the playing field, in terms of negotiation, you can understand why they would. And of course, you can understand why they've retaliated. But again, it's the double standard, right? It's the double standard of Israel. It's the double standard of the West that basically those of us in the West can do what the hell we like, but anyone else cannot do that.
Agreed. Completely agree with you. It's a double standard. Absolutely a double standard. I even want to go back to this. Oh, sorry, did you hear that? Was that just me?
Our producer was in our ear. I'm not sure what you said
sorry.
though, but
But I wanted to go back to something that you'd said as well. I completely agree it's a double standard, but I also want to reiterate the fact that Israel is a terrorist state. I think by any reasonable definition, it's a Zionist regime that I'm so against, and I think it's systematically bombed civilian infrastructure. It's targeted refugee camps and hospitals, and I don't doubt this will happen in Iran. I really don't feel like this is going to dissipate. I don't feel like it's going to calm itself down. This is more than just one government and one prime minister. This is structural.
Yeah.
Israel is a settler colonial project that's been built on ethnic cleansing. And its survival as a regional superpower literally depends on perpetual war and repression. I think that's the same tactics, the same techniques that are used, and you were saying this earlier, to brutalize Palestinians with surveillance drones or AI-driven targeting and all of this like ridiculous stuff, and all of this nuclear BS that, like you said, shouldn't even exist in the first place. And it's just collective punishment. And I am sick and tired of seeing on the news or reading an article about the fact that so and so X number of civilians are dead as a result of an airstrike that's been set off by Israel, or an IDF soldier has killed so and so. And I'm thinking, to what end? When does this end? When does it end? I don't know how, and I don't know what's going to happen as a result. I really don't know where we're going to go forward, like how this is going to unfold going forward. But I will say that I'm incredibly scared. I think for the state of affairs over there, for the state of affairs here, for our complicity in this, for the silence that's happened in the West, incredibly frightened.
I mean, colonialism is like it's a sickness. It's a cancer actually. It spreads. It will not stop spreading. So I think I think someone in the chat said, I don't think that Israel wants to occupy Iran. I think they do, because colonialism doesn't stop, right? It's something, the empire, we would have, if we had it our way, we would have controlled the entire world. That's how it works. You don't just stop, you continue to go. There are certain targets at first, but if Israel has its way, they will want to control the entire earth. That is what colonialism does. It's what the British Empire wanted to do. So it's never, ever going to stop. And we're going to hear all of the excuses that, oh, well, Iran, they harbor terrorists and we took out terrorists. It's the same shit over and over again. And it doesn't mean that you then say, okay, well, no other country has terrorists. It's not about that. But it's like, what do we say? Two wrongs don't make a right. So two terrorists don't make a peaceful world. And right now, Israel is a terrorist state backed by the world superpower, which is the USA, and of course the West. Let's leave that there. But of course, that's not the end of the show. We're going to bring in our producer, Lewis, who of course is going to be giving us some updates on what's been going on with Israel and Iran, because the news is constantly flowing as we've been live.
Yes.
Hello, Lewis.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Lewis.
I can, yes.
Hello. So yes, I do have some updates, because right as the show started, Iran did its response. So we have a few updates because everything's going a little bit crazy right now. So in its first round of retaliation, Iran has fired around 200 ballistic missiles towards Israel, and many have actually got through the defense system. So far, there's different media outlets reporting different things, but the highest number I've seen is on Haaretz, where 15 have been wounded in Israel. As we speak, they've just started a second round of retaliation, noting that they've targeted Jerusalem with huge explosions been reported. Iran has also claimed that they've taken down 2 IDF fighters and they've captured an IDF soldier, but Israel is denying that they've captured an Israeli soldier. There's about 5 fires right now going on in Israel, and apparently the Ministry of Defense, there's a reported fire in the area there. I feel like a radio updater right now, do you know, when they just come in for like 2 seconds. The US is also assisting in the interception. There's no comment on whether the UK has played a part, because obviously they traditionally have in every single Iranian retaliation. And that's kind of just where we're at right now. I've got 3 different live feeds up, just following it all, because obviously there's just literal notifications coming out every few seconds.
Does this not prove that Israel's commitment to its own hegemony? Oh my God, is it a moth? Israel's commitment to its own hegemony and Netanyahu's like extremist desire to hear the sound of his own voice being like, we have to protect ourselves. I don't know, that's all it's proving to me. I think it just means that we are going to spend however long checking in on, or wanting to check in on, the civilians that are caught in the crossfire of all of this.
Yeah. And the thing is though, like the more war, it solidifies Netanyahu's position, of course. I mean, that's what it tends to do in war. You sort of get behind the leadership, you get behind the government. Because as we've reported on multiple times, Netanyahu isn't the most popular politician in Israel, actually. And I don't think, Israeli citizens would will be asked by the back of him. What doesn't really matter, though, is that you can replace Netanyahu with somebody else. It doesn't change the regime. But yeah, a part of it is absolutely the escalation is to solidify his own position.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to know as well that lots of Netanyahu's critics from within Israel, from outside of Israel, are all saying that he has only done this to continue solidifying his own power. And there's another aspect to this is that the US and Iran were apparently quite close to a deal. And Israel do not want this. They do not want another Iranian deal.
Absolutely.
And this is a huge part of this. For the last few weeks in Israeli media, it has just been constant reporting about the quote unquote fallout between Netanyahu and the Trump administration, and this all mostly comes down to the Iran deal, and they are not happy with it. And is it any coincidence that because people are saying that the report that came out yesterday from the International Atomic Energy Body, whatever it's called, saying that Iran are not complying completely, that's the pretext. That's not only it, and this hasn't been emphasized in the news. Israel have provided intelligence to America saying, oh, we've got all this information saying they're getting ready to make a nuclear weapon, and that's the main reason. It's just Israeli intelligence. So basically, just believe whatever ever Israel say. Another aspect of this I just really want to point out, because it's just completely ridiculous, is that the International Atomic Agency, whatever the acronym is, that is a UN-controlled body. Isn't it ironic that when an independent UN body says Israel's committing genocide, that's anti-Semitic and unreliable. But when another independent UN body says that Iran's doing something wrong, let's use that for a pretext for carpet bombing Iran.
Hilarious. It is fun, isn't it? Because whenever you bring up the UN or any other sort of organizations, but specifically the UN, you say, look what Israel's doing. The UN is saying this, and of course it's Hamas propaganda, or they are Hamas themselves, or they're just anti-Semitic. But for these people, they're going to select and choose whatever works for them. If they stand against them, you got to discredit them. Oh, but suddenly the UN says something that sort of doesn't disagree with Israel. Israel, of course, are going to use the UN to sort of further their agenda. It's highly pathetic. It's so transparent, though, and that's why people don't buy the bullshit of Israel. It's so easy and plain to see.
But I'm sorry, criticism. Why is it that I get so frustrated? Why is it that when we criticize Israeli state violence, that it collapses into hatred of Jewish people? That's not what it is.
But that in itself, right? That in itself, I've said it so many times, and our viewers will know I've said this. That in itself is anti-Semitic, because conflating Jewish people and a state is anti-Semitic.
It is anti-Semitic.
So when you say I'm going to criticize Israel, and you say, well, that's anti-Semitic, you're literally doing the fucking anti-Semitism. But again, for Zionists and for Zionism, they don't actually care about anti-Semitism. And sometimes for them, they would actually rather promote anti-Semitism if it means they can promote Zionism, which is why a lot of the cases of anti-Semitism or so-called anti-Semitism, what they're actually doing is they're including criticisms of Israel under the definition of anti-Semitism to make it look like that more people hate Jewish people than they actually do. And I'm not saying that people don't hate Jewish people. Unfortunately, with the rise of the far right, more and more of them are coming out of the fucking woodwork. But it's not as a high scale as Zionists want it to be, because they want Jewish people to feel like they cannot leave their house. Therefore, the state of Israel becomes more and more necessary. It's very transparent again.
Yeah.
Anti-Semitic to pretend that Israel speaks for all Jewish people and to silence Jewish voices who actually oppose these crimes.
Literally,
It's anti-Semitic. I agree with you.
But other than that, there's no other immediate updates on the topics. Let's go to some lovely comments. For some reason, our lovely button, which allows us to show us who has given anything to the show today, is not actually working properly. But I managed to highlight some of them anyway. Cole has gifted 10 turn left.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cole.
Much appreciated.
There is some more, but I just got to find them manually. Leonard Dominigus, is that how you say it? Dominigus just became a member too, so thank you so much.
Welcome.
I am sorry if anybody else has given anything else right now, but the button that shows us this is for some reason not working. But let's go to some regular comments from earlier in the show. And just off topic but kind of related, Andrew wants to know if anyone's going to the Palestine protest in London tomorrow. So just to remind everyone, there is usually one in every major town and city around the UK pretty much every weekend, so keep on going.
And if you can't make London, then of course there are usually ones in your local city or town. So
And if you can't
show
physically get
your
out for whatever
support.
reason it might be, you've got kids at home, you've got a disability, just keep spamming your MPs inboxes. But go for local councillors as well. Like all of this matters. Going on to Edward's lovely comment about the article breaking out the world's smallest violin just for these people. I
I'm
read
going
the
to ask you, Lewis, how do you feel about a household with £215,000 a year getting space in a Times article saying how tough they have it?
Well, I'll sum it up with actually the other comment that Carl, is it Carl who pointed it out? One second, Andrew pointed this out. So I fact checked this because I thought he was joking, but this is actually true, guys. If you read the article, you will discover she's making cutbacks. She is using Rimmel mascara instead of Lancome. That is
God.
in the article. I checked it. I checked it myself.
She's joining me in the
Perfect.
drug line.
Oh, I missed that detail. I wish I saw that now.
Completely ridiculous. How do I
Hilarious.
feel about it? Like, obviously, I understand that people who are successful could obviously get used to their means, right? But it's simple, right? They can make cutbacks just like everybody else has to. It's the sense of entitlement that they think that they deserve words on a page about how privileged they are, and the fact that yes, I'm sure things have got tighter for them within their means, but they are not in any way in any trouble whatsoever. And these people are usually the type of people who just don't care about anybody else in the entire country and have actually created the conditions for where we are right now. So yeah, screw them, essentially. So where were we? Tiny violin. So Graham brought up the Henry UK subreddit. I would recommend that people just go browse in there, please. It is.
I just want to say I have not heard of that term until that article. I thought it was a joke as well.
Yeah, same.
But it's an actual thing.
Yeah.
So
What does it stand for again?
high earners, not rich yet.
Not rich
Yeah.
yet.
So of course they're saying they can't accumulate assets and stuff.
Oh, sorry. No, so tough for you. So tough.
And obviously, Specs has said that for us to be more successful, obviously we just need to cut down the avocado and toast.
Avocado and toast, Netflix, other streaming services. What else should they be cutting back on? What else should they be cutting back on?
And of course, will somebody please think of the rich people?
I mean, I know that's a joke, but it's funny because we always do think of the rich people, right? Every political decision, every political topic is always framed through the lens of how is it going to affect rich people. Oh, you increase taxes, the rich are going to run away. Business, corporate profits, everything is always through the lens of how rich people are doing, but not about how ordinary working class people are doing. So, like, ironically, all we do is fucking think about the rich people.
Yep.
The rich will not be ignored. Exactly, Jim speak.
I think this comment might be in reference to it. Like, there's a guy on TikTok, I can't remember his name, but he's got that podcast, Help I Sexted My Boss, is it? Is that the right one? It's the really posh guy who does all the etiquette stuff. And he went viral recently for doing an etiquette video on how to eat grapes. And it included a specific pair of grape scissors. Like, they're only designed for grapes. And this is the rich life that some people live. Becca made an interesting comment about 37k, saying that's crazy.
Yeah.
Seems a lot to me.
I mean, I think that's sorry, I cut you off there.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I was going to say, because 37k, as Sarah brought up, is like the average, right? In terms of like the wider society, it's not a high wage. But Becca, you're absolutely right. For me, I hear that, I'm like, that's a pretty good wage. But I do like sympathize with the fact that if you're on 37k a year, you're not laughing because of how expensive things are. I mean, look, if we were to be back in the year 2000, you're on 37k, it'll be far better. But of course, it's not just rent. It's more like if you're on 37k, 40k, it's possible that you're close to getting a house or a mortgage, right? I don't want to make some sort of sweeping generalization there, though, right? But I'm saying, like, if you're on like 20, 25k, it's obviously very far away from saving up for a house. If you're on nearly 40k, you can probably do that. But mortgages have gone up. So obviously we talk about rent a lot, but mortgages have skyrocketed, which of course that was thanks to the Conservatives, and obviously that was their like base, which is why the party collapsed.
And just to add as well, like when I was living in Manchester, I was on 30K working for the charity that I was working for, and that was like fine for like my expenses. I managed to pay all my bills and have a few hundred quid left over, put some savings away, have a little bit of fun. When I moved to London, I asked my organisation, I need a pay rise if I'm moving to London, and they gave me an extra 7.5K, brought me up to 37.5, and I was like, wow, 7,500 pay rise, it's amazing. After I did the tax calculations and the added on rent for London, which doubled my rent. My rent before in Manchester was 800. My new rent in London was 1,600. Basically, I broke even. Like the extra 7.5 grand pay rise
It
that I
literally,
got,
yeah, you
it
got the
just paid.
privilege just to move to London as well,
Yeah, it
wasn't
just
it?
paid. It just paid my rent. It wasn't a pay
Yeah.
rise.
And the thing is, you didn't break even though. You might have broken even moving to London and offsetting the rent, but then of course London just generally is more expensive,
Yeah.
so you still would have been worse off.
Yep. And obviously, like I live in London now, and I don't currently earn that because I recently lost my job. But when I was on 37.5K in London, I was okay in terms of having extra money left over.
Yeah.
But I am a guy who is not married, don't have any kids, and I don't have a car. So I can't. Yes, I had hundreds of pounds left over at the end of the month, but if I was trying to raise a family on 37.5K with my partner, then I can't even imagine how tight that would be.
I
Because
think
you,
that's a really good point actually, because I think, I'm 31. 31. Got my age then. I've got a partner. I'm renting. I have no kids or anything like that. I mean, I'm even emotionally quite far away from having kids, to be honest. But I think like the wage I'm on now, it's like absolutely fine. I'm really, really happy with that. As a non-married renting person, right? But of course, once you start thinking about getting a house or a deposit for a house, having kids, that's where literally 50, 60% of the population UK really fucking struggles. And this is what is just not being addressed. It really is not being
Yeah.
addressed.
And I think also on top of that, like this country does feel like it's built for two. If you don't have someone else on your mortgage application, it's almost near enough impossible to buy a property on your own. So for people who are single and struggling, not struggling, just single, they even to rent what is £800 a month, £900 a month, it's going to be too much. But to split that up between two people would be a little bit more reasonable. But I don't know. I feel like the way, yeah, I've always been convinced that this country is just built for two people and couples.
Which is
well,
also sorry, go on, Les.
no, I was just going to mention as well, just in terms of house prices in London, is that I just literally remembered that I read an article about 2 or 3 days ago. It might have been in the Times, actually, funnily enough. But basically, since a lot of these non-doms have left, because I've just seen a comment about rich people leaving the country, and someone said, "Don't threaten us with a good time." I saw recently that a lot of the houses that non-doms have sold off has actually and had an effect on the market. It's actually made house prices cheaper, not for regular people, but for rich people.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
not
of course.
pointing that out as a necessarily good thing, but it just shows you the effect because whoever's owning the different tiers of housing has an effect. There are people who are rich who couldn't afford the non-dom types of houses, but now they can because the non-doms have left, and therefore it creates a ripple effect in the market because people will be able to now afford houses that the non-doms have sold because there are going to be more of them on the market. And then recently we had that information about how the double taxes, council tax in certain areas in the UK, has stopped people from buying multiple houses and renting them out as holiday homes. And it's actually made house prices cheaper by going literally after rich people. So there are policies out there which do directly impact house prices, and we should be pursuing these. I don't care if a non-dom who's worth 50 million quid has left the UK. If they're having a ripple effect on making house prices cheaper in the UK, well, I welcome it because the ripple effect of that is that everybody else down the chain is going to have more disposable income to spend in the UK, while most of those non-doms are just sitting on their assets and just creating wealth and not working.
Yeah, and what I was going to chime in with is that our economic system at the moment is actually sort of flying in the face with this cultural shift we're having. So of course, 50s, 60s, 70s, more of a what you call traditional conservative family. And then through the modern ages, I don't know if that's the right way of saying it, but anyway, we had obviously the growth of the modern family. But you can see actually the culture shifting back to sort of, look, I mean, you're listening, all politicians talk about birth rates and having more children. That culture is changing almost back in a way. But our economic system cannot provide that. I mean, best case example to use is the 2-child benefit cap, right? if you want to incentivize people having children, why do we have a 2-child benefit cap? Why are people's wages so low? And it's very funny because it's the right-wing politicians who are saying people should be having more kids, but don't support the pro-family policies of a strong welfare state, strong unions for a more redistributive sort of policy where wealth is held in the hands of ordinary people. It's basically gaslighting people. It's saying you should be having more kids. Oh, you can't afford it? Well, funny, my Thatcherite policies aren't going to help you there. And ironically, on the left, we're obviously far more socially progressive, where we're like, if you want kids, great, but if you don't want to have kids, that's your choice. However, our economic policies are more likely to support a family. It's actually kind of ironic here, but that's the thing. Our economic system is flying in the face of what this, I think, is a cultural shift, almost back in a way, because politicians are obsessed with families these days.
Yep. We've got a lovely comment from Autumn. Turn left,
Oh,
rising stars
thank
are left
you.
for YouTube.
That's so
Hopefully, you know, it was slowly getting there, but there was growth.
Yeah.
There is growth.
I highlighted this comment because it's like, oh, what do they spend their money on? Maybe they need to get rid of their yachts and big houses. I was recently in a chat with somebody about, the whole conversation of they think that we need the rich so the money can trickle down, yada, yada, yada. They create jobs. And I thought they were being sarcastic. And I was like, what jobs do they create by having billions, right, when they've already got their established company? And they were just like,
That's what I
well,
had on Tuesday.
well, but they basically said like, oh yeah, but if they're like buying yachts and stuff, that's creating jobs, isn't it? And I'm just like, well, yes, but the equivalent amount of money that they would spend on that yacht, that amount of money could literally create probably in the region of 10 to 20 to 30 times more jobs, depending on where that money is spent. You don't need the hundreds of millions of pounds per year spent on yachts could literally be creating tens and tens of thousands of jobs, which yachts don't create that. They might create a few thousand here and there in places like Italy, but the equivalent wealth is just such a stupid argument. Oh, we need them so they can buy yachts so we can have jobs. It's just, I hate it.
Yeah, I mean, yacht making isn't a widespread industry that helps ordinary people. It just serves the rich. And you're absolutely right. You've hit the nail on the head there. When it comes to wealth creation, I mean, I also reject that term wealth creation because I don't think you can create wealth. It's just redistribution to me, right? But let's just use that framing. If you want to talk about wealth creation and participating in the economy and people spending more money, you need ordinary people spending the money. You need higher wages so these people can go and consume stuff. It's very simple. The higher the demand, demand creates jobs. And I think like this old myth, which again, what I had on Tuesday and what people in the media like to say is that the wealth creators and the job creators are the rich people. That's not how it works. You do not understand the economy if you think that's the case. What creates jobs is demand. And how do you get demand? When ordinary people, or when more people spend money, which is obviously the many is working class people. So when working class people spend money, that goes into the economy, that goes to businesses. Businesses make profits, then they upscale, then they create more jobs. It's very, very simple. That is why at a time when we've got record profits, record corporate profits, we also have low amount of worklessness, and it's not to do with benefits because benefits are really, really low. And we also don't have many jobs. So, as you'll know, unemployment has gone up, it's a 4-year high, which, by the way, when you look at it like on a macro level, the unemployment rate isn't like terribly drastic. But in terms of like the last 4 or 5 years, yeah, it's at an all-time high. But what's a fact that doesn't get talked about is the fact that there's 1.6 million people who are out of work who could work, right? There's 700,000 vacancies. So there's literally not enough jobs for everyone. And within those 700,000 vacancies are often low-paid work, part-time work, precarious work, unsuitable jobs for let's say someone who's physically disabled and obviously can't do all kinds of work. That's not suitable too. So how do we fix that? Well, you can't say, well, the rich people create all the jobs. Well, clearly they're fucking not doing that because there's literally not enough jobs to go around.
Exactly.
Sorry, that's quite long.
No, but I completely agree with you. Wealth creation, like the term is a fucking myth. People need to stop using it. And I think we need to stop asking why are the rich struggling? I think we need to just start asking why are they allowed to monopolize the wealth we create, and why do millions of people who actually create this wealth through labor, through hard work, not through hoarding, why is it that millions of those who do contribute are forced into poverty? I think that's the conversation everyone should be having. So the fact that the Times even put this out there is actually embarrassing. Are you not embarrassed? Because it's fucking hell. Yeah.
But they've got maybe they've got like a kink embarrassment fetish, or they have no clue. I don't know. Either way, it's bad
But
for them.
they'll never run. The Times will never run a front page story about how a working class mother on a 0-hour contract has been
The
evicted.
Times is a bourgeois paper.
They need to switch it up, spice it up a bit.
That's why we exist, though, isn't it? That's why we are here to amplify working class voices, even though we get accused of not being working class because they think, oh, okay, you've got a well-spoken accent. Have you thought that maybe I'd practice it? I don't know. But also, it's not your accent. It doesn't relate to the means of production. Yes, I'm a Marxist.
How do we dismantle that? Because Lewis has been in so many conversations with me on TikTok where they've said, "Yo, you're a condescending, patronising woman." And
doesn't help being Southern though, does it? Because they assume you're a middle class when you're from the South. Which is funny.
They do. Oh well. Definitely not, by the way. Definitely not. If I was, I'd be writing in the Times.
Absolutely. I'd be getting that money.
With the rest of the privately educated journalists.
I'm joking, guys. I would never.
Anyway, that is it for the rest of the comments. Obviously, with everything going on, there's probably going to be so much news to cover, as usual, over the next few weeks. So, yeah, things are getting crazy. Well, when have they stopped, really, since 2016? It just really hasn't stopped, has it, since 2016?
I've got a theory that we all died in 2012 because...
This is because you love Lost so much.
It has nothing to do with Lost, by the way.
It absolutely has. Yes, it is.
Why has it got so Lost?
Because you're obsessed. You're obsessed with that TV show.
Hold on a second. Lost finished in 2010. And my theory comes from 2012, so that is irrelevant. The reason why I think we all died in 2012 because since then I don't feel like we've been alive since, and all the crazy shit that's happened. It's a theory. We're all in like some sort of collective coma.
Okay, so you put that tinfoil hat when you go to bed, Curtis. Just put it on nice and
what helps me sleep at night? We're all dead. Actually, that's not exactly a comforting thought, is it? Like, we're all dead. Oh, I'm sleepy now.
It's the chemtrails.
Come on, then. I mean, look, Sarah, you've got to have some crazy conspiracy you believe in. I want to hear Lewis's, actually. Everyone has some kind of conspiracy.
Oh, the moon landing. I just don't think the moon landing happened.
Oh, come on.
Didn't. You actually... I thought this was a safe space.
Yeah, safe space, but not safe space for fucking morons.
No, but hear me out. It's because, I mean, they've been on the moon afterwards, but I think America just ran to it because they thought they knew Russia was going. So they were like, listen, we have to fake it. Quick. Let's show that we were on the moon. I went down a rabbit hole really recently, and I'm now convinced.
So that's Sarah cancelled. Lewis, what's your conspiracy?
I don't know.
Because you're like the most anti-conspiracy guy as well, but like
I am.
You know,
like I think it's fine to speculate on things that have a basis, but I don't really know. I don't have one. I really don't.
Come on, that's such a boring answer.
I don't know what else to say.
Okay, what about Princess Diana?
Oh.
Yeah. She was all right. No, I don't like. Again, I still don't believe. I don't believe anything untoward happened. I don't.
You're so.
I feel like actually, it's one of those where it's like it's a conspiracy to believe nothing dodgy happened. In terms like, if you were to ask most people, they'd probably go, "Yeah, no, something happened." And actually, you're like the conspiracy person saying, "No, I think it's all fine." To be honest, I don't really actually have a view on that. Obviously, we weren't alive when it happened, so. And it's not something I've gone back in history books with sort of any kind of intrigue.
Imagine if I just came out with the most dark conspiracy theory right now, like ever.
What?
Don't say you believe in the great replacement theory.
No.
You thought I was cancelled.
What's really
Right.
funny is that obviously with a lot of stuff to do with Israel, right? I'm big on anti-conspiracy theory. I like only saying either what's foundationally speculative or what's known to be true or what's likely true. But I saw a guy who does like pro-Palestinian content on TikTok do a video about how basically, oh, it was the Jews who did 9/11, and that was his video. And I did a response to it, not necessarily being like, oh, this is anti-Semitic, but just saying like the evidence that's there is just it's crap and circumstantial. Could it have happened? Maybe. Who knows? But I don't think there's enough information there to say that. And then I got attacked because I didn't realize he was Palestinian American. But it's kind of like if I would have known he was Palestinian American, I probably wouldn't have gone out to call him because I'm not going to put somebody on. I'm not going to put somebody on center stage who's Palestinian American because the mindset of that person is very different to that of somebody else. But yeah, I'm very anti-conspiracy theory. I really am.
Also, I was alive when Diana died. Apparently, she died in 1997, but I was
Yeah,
a
she
child.
did.
I was 4 years old. So
I was only 1 year old, but her energy, her aura.
oh, do you like Hard Die?
Yeah, that's my forever queen.
I feel like you've been sarcastic there.
I swear on everything.
Oh my god, really?
I loved everything when I looked at her. I loved everything about her. And then when
we've got a royalist in turn left.
No, actually, absolutely not. You do not have
We've got a royal correspondent, Sarah Delau.
Whenever they bring the royal correspondent up, I'm like, stop. Go be a correspondent with something a little bit more constructive. Anyway, that's my hot take.
I don't really know what sort of happens at the end of this show. It's gonna it's fucking gone on a wild one. Yes. Right. Anyway, that was interesting. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. That's of course all we have time for. I want to thank all the viewers who tuned in. I want to thank all of those that contributed as a YouTube member or gifted memberships. We really, really appreciate that. Of course, I want to thank Sarah for joining me tonight. What you were doing, what language were you speaking? Facts.
Facts.
Remember
facts. Sorry,
I missed that. What did you say?
No, because you're ready. Remember to check out television.
How about you say it? A one-off. Why don't you do it if you can remember?
I'll remember to like the stream, comment, subscribe. Head off to turnleftmedia.co.uk. Yeah, you take it.
Okay, I'll take it. If you want us to grow, then you can head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There is a link to our Patreon where you can support us monthly, or follow the other link to give us a one-time contribution. We've got a ventriloquist in. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube member for just 99p. We've also just got a quick super chat from Graham, $4.99. Thank you so much. Nice there at the end. But again, thank you to everyone who tuned in. I'm Curtis Daly, and I will see you next time.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.